Thanks for that introduction. My name is Eric Schubert. I'm a Senior Cloud Solutions Architect here at CenturyLink Cloud. I'll be walking you through a presentation, kind of overview of the company, and then we'll go into a demo. So as we take a look, kind of what we're the big picture, what we're looking at here is what you can do with CenturyLink. So a lot of different companies you can do infrastructure as a service. Where we differentiate ourselves is we also offer the ability to do colo. CenturyLink is well known for its network. So you can have a single data center, a single location that's going to have your infrastructure on demand services, your colo, your network, and then layer across that managed services to really tie it all together. So really a great differentiating factor that CenturyLink can offer. As we look back on last year, we really accomplished a lot. We do a DevOps model at CenturyLink Cloud where we release new code every month. And this is just some highlights of all the different new features that we put together in just the last year. We announced some hyperscale features, which are going to give you like 10,000 IOPS out of the box. Completely redid our UI, where you can navigate the entire CenturyLink Cloud feel from a single pane of glass, and redid all the things like dashboard, the groups, servers, create servers. All those different screens have been completely updated and are now much easier to work through and just grab the information you need very clearly. Some more features we did were some VLAN namings, and we've been pretty much on track of releasing 2 new data centers a year, so really expanding out that global footprint. And then you can see some of the other services that we've offered, some more hyperscale, auto-scale features, additional managed services, things like offering managed operating system, managed applications. And then we had a really big price drop last year as well. So like offering all these new services along with the price drop makes for a great compelling situation there. So what we're looking at here is what we're talking about is platform CenturyLink, where you've got the ability to take all the different services that we offer and manage them through the control portal. So not just your cloud infrastructure, but also your networking, also all the different components that make up that, like servers, direct connections, auto-scale features, monitoring, different types of storage, groups, hyperscale, all those different services will be available to you. And a lot of this stuff is already available, and the rest of it is we're working to integrate into the cloud control portal. So you have a single place to go to manage all those different services. So we're pretty excited about that. So we look at this screen here. This is pretty typical for what you're going to see from a cloud provider. You've got your IaaS, your OS, compute, storage, network, and then some services bundled on top of that, right? Nothing too exciting here, nothing too differentiating. Where it does get exciting is when we add in the additional features, where we can orchestrate those together using our blueprints model. We can add in some automation across scheduling, monitoring, policies, do some great stuff with accounts, sub-accounts, and then have the ability to organize and work with it through an API. Then as we take it a step further, when we add on managed services and bundle in things like our MPLS and the colo, and then our marketplace feature, where we're working with a lot of partners to build out services and make them available in our cloud, then you suddenly have a very compelling story of the ability to work with lots of different services and lots of different products and do that with a single vendor. So if you take a look at our global footprint, currently today we have 6 cloud data centers in the U.S. Those are going to be in the Seattle area, Santa Clara in California, Utah, Chicago, Virginia, and New York. We have 3 in Canada, 1 in Vancouver, 2 in Toronto, and then 2 over in the UK, and 1 in Germany. Very shortly, we'll be opening a facility in Singapore, and looking to do the next one probably in the Australia area. And then looking beyond that, we'll see where we go for those next 2 data centers. So always looking to the future, looking where it makes sense to provide new and unique services across the globe. So if you look at some customer use cases, I get asked a lot, what are some typical uses for cloud? What kind of applications do people run? And I typically say it's pretty much whatever you want. Anything, and this chart speaks to that, where there really isn't a limit on what kind of applications you can run in our cloud environment. So it has been built towards the enterprise with performance and availability in mind. So really any type of application is going to be a good fit for your cloud environment. Let me send out another survey of why CenturyLink Cloud? Why are decision makers choosing CenturyLink Cloud? Let's point out that first one there, which I think is compelling. So in its ideal balance of features supporting business agility and control over IT operations. I mean, that's your ultimate goal with cloud, is to have that agility and that control, and then still have all of the security and the performance and the availability that goes with that. So that's a compelling slide right there. And there are other reasons, of course, as well. Price, choice of integration, and so on. So if you look at some current customers using CenturyLink Cloud, we call this the NASCAR slide. So you can just kind of read through that quickly, kind of get an idea of who are some of the customers that are working with CenturyLink Cloud today. And let's just take a quick look technically at, what does the physical architecture of a cloud environment look like. So if you look at this slide, it's actually showing two data centers and how they're interconnected. So on the left, as we start at the top here, you have the internet coming in, then we're going to have our perimeter firewall going to be doing IDS and IDP scanning. And then there's going to be an internal firewall, which is going to route all of the different VLANs for each account. So each account is assigned VLANs, which you can then create servers on. And you can create multiple VLANs per account and control the firewall rules between those. And then you can also have resources in a different data center, set those up with their own VLANs under their own groups here, and then set up a data center federation connection where your servers on each side are allowed to communicate with servers on the other side. So it's a complex model, but it's also very simple to manage and to work with, and does provide quite a bit of flexibility and security. So I'll actually take you through quite a bit of these features as we work through the demo. So let me slip out of the slides here and go over to our browser. Be able to see that okay, Jim? We've now switched over to the control portal. Okay.
Yep, we can see it.
Excellent. So this is the platform that is currently available for managing your cloud environment, and it also is the platform of the future that will be integrating all of those additional services as we talk about platform CenturyLink. So this is the portal. This is the place you will go. So what we're logged into right now is the dashboard. So as an admin user, this is the first screen you would see as you log in. If you mouse over the menu here, you can see all the different options that we have. We'll go through quite a few of these and highlight some of the key features. This is available from any screen. You can always just mouse over this and have access to the menu. So as we take a look here, the first thing you'll notice is something that's a key differentiator for a cloud product, and that's price. With some other cloud providers, it can be difficult to know how much you're actually paying. And as an infrastructure as a service provider, your bill can fluctuate based on the amount of resources that you have allocated. So what you'll be billed for would be the storage, the memory, the CPU, and the licensing that you're consuming at any given hour. So you're going to see that right off the bat, how much your environment is currently billing. We'll also show you what you build month to date, and if you maintain this current spend, what your estimated monthly bill will be. And obviously, if you build some new servers, this hourly price will go up. If you delete some servers or remove some resources, this price will go down, so it's very flexible. We talked about the 12 data centers that are available. As a customer, you can build out servers in any of these 12 data centers. You can connect them, as we showed on the network diagram. You can also connect them back to your home office, to your whatever locations you have using our self-service site-to-site VPN. After you've deployed servers, in order to manage them, you have full admin rights to the operating system, whether that's Linux or Windows, and you can use our client VPN to access those systems. A few other things on the dashboard here. We'll show you how much bandwidth you consumed, show you some upcoming events, which we'll talk about more when we get into the groups section. But the last key thing to note here is that everything that happens in the cloud environment is logged. So see if someone created a user via the API, someone deleted a group, all that's going to be logged. And you can go in and view the full log history, pull down a report of that, and use that for your own auditing. So let's drill into one of these data centers, see what we find inside here. So this is a demo environment. These are not production servers, but this is running on our production environment. So it's just some VMs we built out for staging, but this is the actual product. It's not like a mock-up or a QA environment. This is the real thing. So what we're looking at here is the Canadian Vancouver data center. You can see here, as we talked about, your pricing can adjust as you're adjusting things. So the first thing we show you is how much has it adjusted recently. So you can see in the last 2 weeks if CPU, memory, disk, or servers have adjusted, if someone's added or removed. And you can see this is pretty much a fairly static environment. Over here on the right, you can set limits per data center. So if you have a customer or a department that you want to give them the rights to create, but you don't want them to go over a certain spend cap, then you can cap those based on CPU, memory, and storage metrics that you've set over here. And you'll notice that things like the price and recent activity have filtered to show just this one data center. You'll also notice that I can navigate to any data center, to any group, and any server without having to leave this pane. So let's go down one level into the groups level. Groups are another key differentiator for CenturyLink Cloud. What groups are a way to logically organize your servers. So you can see we have some servers organized here by production, development, infrastructure, and web. You could organize them by department. You could organize them by type. Really, however you want to organize them is fine. Like I said, it's just a logical container, like a folder. But some cool things you can do around groups are some of the automation features that we've built in. You can do simple things like power functions, and you can do more complex things like adding in an auto-scale policy. You can also execute packages. So we have a way to upload software scripts that you've written, and you can deploy those across your entire stack of servers. You can also do things like schedule tasks. If you come over to this development servers group, you can see that we've set some tasks around this group. In the CenturyLink Cloud environment, if your servers are not currently running, then we don't bill you for the CPU or the memory allocated to them, just the disk and the licensing. So if you have some development servers or any kind of type of server that doesn't need to run 24/7, you can set a scheduled task around that group, which will pause those servers at a certain time of day, power them back on when you're ready for them to be used again, and have some significant cost savings. So groups are very powerful. Let's go down one level further and look at just an individual server, and you'll see a lot of cool things just on this one screen here. Well, first you can see the price is filtered just to show this one server. Now we're showing metrics for just this one individual server. You can see I've got 1 core allocated to this server, 4 gigs of RAM, and these metrics here are going to show utilization as well as allocation. So you can see this server is running fairly unused since it's just a demo server, doesn't really have any load on it. So it's running about 3% of that one core. If you look up here, you'll see this green line that states CPU above 85%. That's going to be our alert policy. So you can set alerts for any of your systems based on CPU, storage, and memory, and have it trigger an email to a distribution list or to however you configure that, so that you'll get notified when your server requires some assistance. If you look over here on the right, you can see some interesting details about your server, like what operating system it's running, what type it is, what its name is, what its IP address is. So in our environment, everyone gets a static IP range, and then each server gets assigned a static IP, so you can always access the server using this static IP. By default, none of our servers have inbound internet access. We see that as being a security risk. So you can configure that on a server-by-server basis. So that's very easy. You just come in here, click Add Public IP, choose the internal address you want it to NAT to, click which port you want it to open. Typically be 80 or 443 in a web-type environment. If you have some custom ports, you can set those. You can even restrict the source traffic if you want to get that detailed. And then that will assign an available public IP, create the NAT rules in our firewall, and NAT that to this internal IP address. So a very secure way of providing public access to a server. In order to adjust the resources of a server, it's very simple. All you do come in here is click on Edit, and you can move the slider. Three things are happening here. You notice that this memory amount will change. The price will also adjust to show you how much that memory increase is going to cost. And you'll also notice there's no notification down here. If I had dropped this down, it would warn me that a reboot's going to be required to apply a memory change. So Windows 2012 is able to hot add memory. And the control portal recognizes which operating system your server is running, and will notify you if it's going to require a reboot or not. You can also add in additional storage, and you'll see the activity history is also filtered as well. So let's move off of this screen and show you how to build a new server. Then we'll talk about networking, some of the firewall features, and move forward from there. So let's pick a data center. Let's do Santa Clara. To our group here. And then we can decide whether it should be a managed server or not. So as an infrastructure as a service provider, so we'll take care of all the infrastructure up to the operating system. If you want us to layer on a layer of protection for the operating system, do things like patching and antivirus and things like that, then toggle on this managed server and we can handle that for you. Two different types of server here. So you have standard, which is going to be a SAN-based storage that's going to typically get you several thousand IOPS out of the box. If you're looking at things like an Hadoop or MongoDB or Cassandra workloads like that, where you're doing distributed workloads across multiple VMs, but you need very high performance, like in the 10,000 range, then you can build out some hyperscale servers and run those. And that's the difference there, is it's going to be local SSD storage within those hypervisors. So let's just stick with standard for now, and you can see the full list of operating system templates that we have available. You can choose any of these templates. You can customize these templates by building out a server, adding in any customization features that you want, and then converting that to a template. Let's just pick a Windows box here. We'll give it a name, give it a description. Then you can either type in your root or admin password, or the system will auto-generate one for you. Another key differentiator is that there's no drop-down for server size. There's no small, medium, large, extra large server size. You can build any size server you want, up to 16 CPU and up to 128 gigs of RAM, and any size in between. You'll notice as I'm moving these sliders, the price over here will adjust automatically, so you can get some information ahead of time of what that's going to cost. We'll go into more detail on autoscale, but we do have the ability to automatically add CPU to a running server based on load. So you can set the policy and then apply that policy to a server after it's built or even while it's being built. You can add in some additional storage here. You can even assign which drive level you want it to be. Then choose your backup level, whether that's standard or premium. Standard is going to give you 5 days of backups. Premium is going to give you 14 days of backups. Next, you choose your network. As I said, you can get a VLAN, get multiple VLANs per account. We'll talk about more on that when we get into the firewall section. And if this is a server you're just using for some testing or for a POC or for a temporary environment, then you can actually set the time to live. So if you're setting up some servers for a weekend or for a 1 week long project, and then 6 months later you're still paying for it because you forgot about it, you can actually set when the server will be deleted. And the user who created it will be notified 1 day before it's deleted to just kind of confirm. Click on Create Server, and depending upon which operating system you've chosen, and the server will be online and fully licensed, fully IP'd, and ready to log into within 10 to 15 minutes. So I've alluded to it a few times. Let's jump over to the network section, kind of work down that list there. So you can have multiple VLANs assigned per account. Those are going to be, give you about 200 or so IP addresses. And then as you look down the list, if you look then at the IP addresses, you can see that the full list, you can see which have been claimed, which are available. And then as the portal is working through, it will just assign the next available IP address in the VLAN that you've selected. So within those VLANs, by default, there is no communication allowed between them, but you can configure that yourself. So you have the ability to completely open up the VLAN so that it can communicate with another VLAN that's allocated to your account. And you can filter that all the way down to just a single IP address is allowed to communicate to a single IP address over a single port. So this use case here would be like a SQL database and a web front end, where you have your web front end in like your public facing, and then you only have a single port open back to your database. So kind of have that multi-tier security model. Here's where you set up that cross data center connection, where you can say my server in this location, for example, Vancouver, is allowed to communicate to any of my servers in Virginia, and that will allow that. If you think back to our network diagram, that was that connection we were showing there. So also a self-service feature there. Let's take a look at some of the autoscale and the more interesting policies that we have available. We've touched on these. I'm going to show you where we actually configure all of these things. So if we look at alerts, you can come in here, configure any of these alerts, set what the threshold will be, and then set who it should be sent to, whether that's a single user or a distribution list. We have a full API for our system, so you can also consume these alerts via our webhook. So you just have a listener configured to our webhook address, and you can consume those alerts that way. A couple of different autoscale models. First, let's take a look at the vertical autoscale model. This is what we were looking at when we were building a server. So what this is going to allow is for the ability to automatically add CPU to a running server. So if you think about how you would build a server in the physical world, say you have a database server run some month-end processing and needs to have 8 cores of processing for 2 days, and then the rest of the month sits pretty much idle. So as you're building out that physical server, you would need to build it out for the maximum load. So you would need to buy 8 cores and have all that depreciation and pay for those up front. With an autoscale environment, you actually configure your server for that minimal load, set it to 1 or 2 CPU or whatever the minimum is for your database, and then let it autoscale up and add in resources as it needs to meet that short-term load, and then configure back down when it's finished and have that all be automated. And that's what this screen allows you to do. So you can set as many policies as you want for how many different use cases that you have. Let's just walk through this one quick. So if this server is running at 85% CPU and it's been that way for 15 minutes, then it will add 1 CPU and then complete that cycle again. And after cooling down for 20 minutes, it will then restart the timer and keep going through this cycle, but not go above the maximum you set here, which is 4. Then at the end of the day, or the end of the load, when the CPU has gone back down to 15%, as we showed earlier, typically scaling CPU and memory down does require a reboot in most modern operating systems. So we let you set the scale down window for when it's okay to reboot that box. Let's go back now and look at another autoscale policy that we have. And that's going to be our horizontal autoscale policy, another great use case for groups. So what this allows you to do, typically you can use like a web type environment where you would need to add additional servers into your web pool. And the way that looks is this. So you would configure out 4 or 5 servers, but then only have 2 or 3 of them running at a time. And then based on policy of CPU and or memory usage, automatically power those servers on and add them to your web pool, and then power them back down when they are no longer needed. So similar ideas to the horizontal or the vertical autoscale policy where you're adding CPU based on thresholds. This one's actually powering on servers and powering them off. And if you'd recall, when those servers are powered off, you're not paying for the CPU or the memory that's allocated to them. And the nice thing about this model is that your servers are already configured so that you don't have to spin up a brand new server and do all of the work that goes into deploying that. It's already ready to go and this needs to be powered on. Let's move next into blueprints. Blueprints are a great feature for being able to quickly create new environments. So if you think of what a template is going to be a single server where you build that out, you install your applications, you run your configuration scripts, get it all set just right, and then you convert it back to a template that you can build out multiple systems from. This model is a little bit different. If you think of the name blueprint, it's not actually the finished product, it's the design for how you get to that finished product. So what a blueprint is, it allows you to have the design for multiple servers, layering on multiple different applications, and then running configuration scripts to tie it all together. Then you have a single click deploy to bring it all together. So let's just take a look at some of what we have in here. So we're working a lot with a lot of different partners to bring in their products into what we're calling our ecosystem, where they're building out blueprints which will allow you to very quickly spin up one of their applications. This is also where you layer in the managed services. So if you're building out managed operating systems, you can also layer on managed applications like IIS and Apache and MySQL and SQL Server and things of that nature. So as part of the blueprint model, let's just take a look at this Cloudera one here as a good example. So what you'll note here is that you're not actually paying this right now. This is the what if screen that says, if I deploy this blueprint, I would be consuming this amount of resources, and this is how much it would cost me. But until I deploy this, it's not costing me anything. So you can design as many blueprints as you want, and you're not incurring any costs until you actually spin them up. So this is going to spin up 4 servers, some pretty hefty configurations here. And then it's going to work through all these steps. So you work through all of these steps as part of your blueprint designer as you're building it out. Adding in disk, doing some customizations, and installing applications, doing some configurations. You can make these as simple or as complex as they need to be. You can see this is a managed Cloudera environment. It's pretty complex, but you can go pretty deep with these. Then you have a single-click deploy to launch that. As part of that process, you upload scripts and software packages, and then working with our XML file of how to call those scripts and implement those in, you can build out an entire blueprint. And then if you think back to another use case of groups was execute package. So you can have some pre-built systems. Let's say you build out some systems based on a blueprint you've designed, and then you have an update to your software package. Well, how do you deploy that across your servers? Do you have to rebuild them? Do you have to go into each one and run the update? Well, no, you just publish your software package up into your environment, and then you can push that out to all of your group servers using the execute script idea. So let's move forward here. Another cool thing we can do is we've added in a import server option. So if you have some servers running in a different VMware environment, and you can get those exported to an OVF file, and it matches one of our available operating systems. Right now we're just doing Red Hat 6, Windows 2008, and 2012. You can actually do a self-service import, and we'll bring that server into our environment for you. We have quite a few other options for bringing in other operating systems that we support, but those would just be a service task. Let's take a look at some of the account structures and billing aspects here. So what we were logged into is what we consider a parent account. And you can actually have sub-accounts underneath those parent accounts as a hierarchical structure. And then within those accounts, you would have users who would have the ability to log in to an account and then have access to any of the sub-accounts beneath them. So I'm logged on to the parent account, and you can see I have access to the sub-account underneath that. You can set up your users to be directly in the sub-account, and they would not see the parent account or any other account on their level. So you can set up a pretty complex hierarchy. Each account is going to generate its own invoice, so you can have separate bills for that, whether it's a separate customer or a separate department within your business. You can organize that how you want. So you've got users. You've got the ability to do SAML, single sign-on here, where you give us your insertion point, have your identity provider configured on your side, whether that's a third-party identity provider or something like ADFS, and then you'll have the ability to use those credentials for logging into the control portal. We also have, this is a fairly new option here, of multiple different abilities for role-based user permissions. So you can see I'm logged in, or this particular user is logged in as a account administrator, but you have different options here of like read-only, billing manager, and on down the line. So you can really give people access to only what they need to have access to. And the way this works, if you have one of these lesser abilities, then if you go up to the menu, the things you don't have access to would just be hidden and you wouldn't see them. So it's not like you get an error or anything, or it's there and you just can't click on it, so you wouldn't even be able to see it. So it makes it nice and clean. Another key feature is our ability to white label. So you can see you've got the nice CenturyLink Cloud green with the black contrasting here. Let's say you would prefer to make that match your own company scheme. You can do that just fine. You can change this name here. You can upload your own logo. And you can even adjust the color scheme down to like the exact RGB color numbers to exactly match your color scheme there. If you want to go even further and completely mask if this has anything to do with CenturyLink Cloud, you see there's a footer down here that links to different things within CenturyLink Cloud. You can customize all of these to go to where you want them to go. The system sends out emails based on, if you create a new user or when your server is finished building, it will send out notifications. You can customize all of those things so you can have them come directly from you. So some good reseller, good white labeling capabilities there. You can even hide which data centers are available. So if you only want people to be able to build servers in the US, or you're a UK customer and only want people to build in the UK, then you actually come in here and hide these other data centers so they wouldn't even show up in the list and would not be able to be deployed to. So lots of different customizations that you can do. Tried to make this very self-service, very self-sufficient, but there is going to be times where you need some help. So how do you get that? That's very simple. You just come up here and click on this question mark. And we have a full knowledge base where you can get in lots of information about the cloud system, about a lot of different features, functionalities, best practices, some how-to guides, lots of great wealth of information in there. If you are having a problem and need some help, then you can chat with our support team. You can submit a support request, which will go create a ticket in our ticketing system. And a lot of how we've designed this product is based on customer feedback, and it's very important to us. We do a DevOps model where we're adding new code in every month. We do have a long-term and short-term roadmap, which is flexible, and we do move things around in that roadmap based on customer feedback and based on where we see the market going. So I work very close with the product team. They take these feature ideas very seriously. So you definitely recommend that you come in and submit feature ideas and let us know how the product could be better in your mind. So that concludes my demo, Jim. So that's pretty much cover the 95% of the key features of the portal. Yep. So I had a couple more slides. Let me click back to that quickly here just to cap it off. So just some additional resources for the folks out there. So definitely check out CenturyLinkCloud.com. And there's some tools out there. You can actually do an estimate of what it would cost. You could kind of do some building out some different systems in the estimator tool, layer on different services, and kind of get a good idea of what it's going to cost you. I also have a TCO tool. It's going to do some comparisons against some other cloud providers, and then again that link to the knowledge base would be just completely reformatted and redone. It's now open source and based in GitHub, so you can go and view that. And then there's lots and lots of product information out there on CenturyLink Cloud, and everything from the full SLA to how to build a managed server to kind of what our vision is on cloud.
Yeah, you've got a lot of really good self-services capabilities. So we do have some questions, and just a reminder, if you have questions, type them in the questions pane. So the first, Eric, I'll just go through these. The first is from Ram. So very frequently, server creation fails at the time of creation, and you can't at time creation is you might not be able to assign resources properly. Can you talk a little bit about how the system recognizes that process and alerts you?
Yeah, so if you're coming up against a cap on resources, like you have a limit set on resources, it will give you a warning when you try and create a new server saying that the resource limits have been met, and you need to contact your administrator to add more resources. On the back end, you shouldn't really ever be concerned about us not having enough capacity. I mean, we're constantly adding capacity. All of our data centers have plenty of overhead for additional growth. We've actually had, customers build out hundreds of servers over a weekend, and we thought it was a glitch in the system, but it worked just fine.
And you have a logging window too, where you can see every activity happening as servers are built, and if there's failures, you post information on that.
Yeah, it'll take you into the queue.
Yeah.
So if I click back into the portal here, this is the queue. So as you're building things out, it will take you automatically into the deployment queue, and you can actually see step by step what's happening.
Yep.
So if I look at the depleted queue, you can see that's some pause features here. If there's additional features, I can actually come in and it'll see exactly what's happening, and if there's a point where it throws an error, it will show you like what the error is and what caused the error, and give you some clues as to how to resolve that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So another question from Ram. So where are admin root credentials stored, and who can view them?
So admin root credentials are stored in our database. They're an encrypted hash, so no one has access to those. There's really no way to hack those. A user can retrieve those from within the portal by going to the server page, clicking on the individual server, and then clicking on here on Show Credentials, and it will temporarily show the login for that server. But that's the only place that's available. No one else has access to that.
Right. That frequently helps me out when I forget my credentials.
Yeah, especially if you do the system assigned. That's you would have no other way than that. We don't send that out in an email. You need to retrieve that through the portal there.
Yep. So another question. So regarding local SANs, what's the maximum VMs you can put on, and can you talk a little bit about big data? What are your plans to support big data and the large amounts of data you can put on your SANs?
Yep. Yeah. So today, thanks Greg for that. So today you can have up to 4 terabytes per VM, and those need to be broken into 1 terabyte chunks. I mean, obviously those are not congruous numbers with big data, so we are working very hard to add in functionality where you can have much larger disk size. So that team works right here in Bellevue. They're analyzing different products, analyzing the APIs and how those can fit and function in, and actually tie in several different products to that offering. So that is something that we're looking at working on. Another option is using some of the platform CenturyLink options, where we actually have some NAS and some external co-load type managed SAN features that you can access and plug into.
Good.
I'll stay tuned on that.
Okay. Horizontal policy is powering on or off. So can you talk a little bit about, so there are no real-time horizontal scaling? Do you have real-time horizontal scaling?
That is pending future development. So what we like to call it minimum viable product. That's an MVP. So as
MVP.
Yep. So that was the first iteration of horizontal auto scale, was to have pre-configured servers that you can power on, and then future iterations of that will be moving towards that ability to actually spin up new instances.
Got it. Okay, good. Another question from Ram. So can you lock down sub-account viewing, pricing, or root credentials? I think you talked a little bit about this. But.
Yeah, so you can set that. So a user at a top-level account is going to have access to any sub-account. So the way you would lock it down is to not is to put the account at the highest level that user should have access to.
Great. What model for what model for support? Let's say there is an issue with bugs. How quick will CenturyLink help fix the bugs? So can you tell us a little bit about your responsiveness to some of the priorities of different bugs that can happen?
Sure. Yeah, we have a full matrix up on in the knowledge base. You can pull that down, but we have SLAs around and response times around different types of tickets, different levels of tickets based on the severity, also based on the level of support that goes with your account. So we have 3 levels of support. We have developer, professional, and enterprise. So kind of a sliding scale of increased response times with those, a little bit additional cost with that as well. But if it's considered a critical and affecting multiple users, then there's much higher response time and typically any ticket's going to get responded to within 30 minutes, and it's typically much faster than that. So that all of the metrics are tracked. I also work closely with that operations team, and I see people in the queue all the time saying, "Hey, this ticket's getting stale. Someone needs to jump in and respond to that." And that's just for a standard question. So things that are considered an outage type situation, or it's affecting multiple VMs or multiple customers, they'll automatically spin up a bridge internally to troubleshoot that, get that resolved, and then make sure that they're communicating via the ticket out to the affected parties. We also have a customer satisfaction team which works closely with customers to make sure that their needs are being met and they're happy and rolling along. So it's support and high availability and quick resolution to issues is very important and paramount to us.
Yeah, you guys do a really good job, and I've used the chat features often. So a question from Todd: can VMs be exported?
Yes, they can. Yeah, through a service task, we can get you an LVF file of your data. So you can export that to like a different data center, or if you just want to take it somewhere else, we can export that for you as well. So we have, if you go to CenturyLinkCloud.com, we have a list of service tasks, which are kind of some of those manual things you can't do self-service, and get some costs around those and get some ideas of what's available, whether it's building a custom blueprint or setting up a dedicated load balancer or importing some VMs that aren't supported in our self-import process. There's quite a substantial list of what's available there.
Great, thanks. Question from Adam, and we were actually talking about this before we started the webinar. So, are all of the functions and options in the web UI available via REST and APIs? Also, is there some sort of text-based blueprinting templating available like AWS and CloudFormation has?
So on the first one, we're working on that. So I would say pretty much everything but the networking pieces are available via API. We're actually working on a new networking model, which will have the API built into that. And then we also are working on some different tools for the ability to streamline that blueprinting process as well.
Okay. And final question. So if I have a sub-account and want to hide root credentials, CenturyLink doesn't provide a way, or CenturyLink doesn't provide a way to hide it. What's the plans to fix this? Which is true.
Well, give me I'm not following the use case. So if a user has, you would do that through role-based credentials. So if you had specific users you didn't want to be able to see the server credentials, like they would just need access to those sub-accounts.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think what happens is when you get in there, you'll actually, if they have access to the servers, then the credentials will pop. I think you showed it on an earlier pane.
Correct. Yeah, so you would just, the way you would control that is you would have to assign that user to just that sub-account and then give them permissions that would not allow them to view those credentials. So if they didn't need to have access to the servers, they need access to billing or networking stuff, then you would just give them the specific roles that would hide those features.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think let me just flip back to my slide. I don't know if you guys can see this, but just two things. One, I wanted to make sure you had our contact information. I've got my phone number and email there, so if anybody has an interest in understanding more about the CenturyLink Cloud or is interested in the 30-day trial, we're working with CenturyLink. As I said earlier, we're a master partner. We have a fast track to spin up cloud trials very quickly.